All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Michigan Edition. Go Blue attire is in the house. Jeff here. Dan, how are you, man?
Good, man. It seems like we haven't done an episode in like 2.5 weeks because of the bye week, but it's only been a week, so I mean it is what it is. But it just seems like, at least in my life right now, days are just going ridiculously long. But it's good to have you back in front of me, and we got a game this weekend.
Yeah, the last time we spoke was last week, and we were 6-0. Great news, we did not lose this past week at the bye week. We did not lose. We stay 6-0. So still undefeated. Still feels great to be recording on these wonderful Wednesdays. And we have a pretty cool game coming up this Saturday. I think we'll get right into it. How do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. Saturday, October 23rd, noon kickoff. You got Northwestern traveling up to Ann Arbor. These two schools over the summer created the George Jewett Trophy. It's to honor George Jewett II. He's the first black male to ever play football at each school. So, kind of a cool little ordeal. They're obviously honoring this man who has a very unique story, and it's going to be another trophy game. Obviously, we have the Paul Bunyan Trophy, we have the Little Brown Jug, and those are the two big trophy games. This one hopefully will become a unique trophy game as well. I always like playing Northwestern. I have a lot of respect for their program and their coach and how hard they play. With that said, new trophy. What do you have to say on that?
You know what? To be honest with you, didn't even know it existed until you just said something. I guess I might be sleeping underneath a rock. I don't know.
You are 100% sleeping.
But that's from what you're saying, man. That's a cool thing to have. And Northwestern, granted Michigan's got usually the upper hand in this game. It's still something pretty neat to play for and kind of unique just for them too. It's not like they just created this trophy just to do it. They did it for a reason. So we got something to look forward to. And this is my first game in the big house since COVID, so I'll be there this Saturday with some friends, and so I'm excited, man.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously a pretty historic rivalry. There's 75 total games that have been played. Michigan owns the series 58-15 with 2 ties in there, and they're currently on a 6-game win streak dating back to 2011. The teams did not play in 19. They also did not play in 2020. So it's been a couple of years since we've last seen them. This game, before we get into predictions and all that, there's a little bit to go over here. It feels very blowout-ish. Okay, everything I'm going to tell you here in the next couple of seconds here, you're going to say, "Wow, Michigan by 100." I mean, just truly, that's what it looks like. But I have a lot of respect for Northwestern. I have respect how they play, how they coach, and I expect them to come prepared. But let's just give you the details here. Northwestern this season, they're 3-3. At home, they're 3-0. All their wins come at home. On the road, they're 0-3. Here's how they got there. Week 1, they lost at Michigan State 38-21. Week 2, they beat INST. I think that's Indiana State, but I'm not entirely. Oh, it is. Okay. Yep. Indiana State. They beat them 24-6 at home. Week 3, they traveled to Duke, and they lost 30-23. Week 4, they were at home against University of Ohio. That is not Ohio State. That is just University of Ohio Bobcats. 35-6 win. Week 5, they travel to Nebraska, and they lose 56-7. They get pounded. A game that we literally just played at and won. And then week 6, they hosted Rutgers, and they won 21-7, another team that we beat. Boy, oh boy, they're traveling to Ann Arbor. It tells me they're probably going to lose. What do you think here? Obviously, they haven't beat us in 6 games. We've had some close ones in the past. Everything I've just told you, what are your remarks there?
Yeah, this is definitely the Northwestern team that kind of is going to be a little disappointment, I guess, to Northwestern fans. They're 3-3, obviously. You just went through their schedule so far. I feel like, judging by what they have in the future, they're probably going to be fighting for going 6-6 or going to a bowl game is going to be an accomplishment. We have been down to the wire in some of these games with them. In those years, they just had more playmakers on offense at the time. They ran through Trevor Siemian at quarterback. They had Ken Coulter, which was more of a spread option and kind of a dual threat, and they had a few playmakers on defense. This does feel a little bit of blowoutish. The spread I think is 23.5 or 24, depending on where you're looking.
No, it's 23.5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be about a 3 touchdown game. But you got Pat Fitzgerald wearing the headset on the other sideline, so you can never take this team for granted. They're not gonna lie down, And we obviously seen that when we played against Rutgers. And Rutgers, ever since we took care of business against them, they've kind of strung some losses together. So again, the Big Ten can be kind of weird. We've seen pretty wild weekend this past weekend. But yeah, I mean, Northwestern, what I did notice, looking at them is they can create some turnovers. Looks like they've got 6 forced fumbles and 6 fumble recoveries. They got a few interceptions, and until Big Ten play, Michigan wasn't really creating turnovers themselves. So just got to take care of the ball, which I think Michigan can do. And I feel like this is going to be one of those games where we favor the run game, and we get to the next game. I know we got a big one potentially coming up here in East Lansing, but obviously we don't want to look ahead. Players, coaches don't want to look ahead. So I think this might just be we're going to pound you in the mouth. We're going to get this clock run down as quick as possible, and we're going to try to just grit it out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you kind of answered the one question I was going to have for you for this preview. I agree. I think they're going to try and run the rock and drain the clock. I mean, that's going to be the game plan this weekend. And is that going to be reflective in the spread? Who knows? But they're not going to. I don't think they're going to really showcase too much going into this big time Sparty showdown that we're going to potentially have next week, as long as Michigan and Michigan State both come out with wins this weekend. Actually, Michigan State might be in a bye. Are they in a bye this weekend? Do you know? Because obviously we were on a bye last week.
I think they play Indiana.
Okay. Yeah, I think yeah. Let's see here. I'm not seeing it. They actually no. I think they're on a bye. Yeah, they're on a bye. So
they must have just played Indiana then, right?
They did. Yeah, that's who they. Yes, they beat them last week.
Yep.
So they're on a bye. They don't have to worry about. They took care of business. Michigan's got to take care of business in order to get to an undefeated big time matchup next weekend. But predictions as far as Northwestern goes, I think you already nailed yours. I think they run the rock, drain the clock, reduce turnovers, and find a way to win the game. And
yeah,
I would love to see this as a high scoring output, but truthfully, Northwestern plays too hard for us to try and air it out and get fancy. I think this is just one that fans might not like because it might be low scoring because they're just trying to control the clock and run the rock, like I keep saying here.
Right, and I think this is a perfect game too, where if Michigan gets comfortable at halftime, I think we're going to see some Edwards running the ball here in the second half. I think if you do have a 17-point lead per se, I think it'd be unwise not to put him in there. So I think we'll see some. Again, I don't want to take these guys lightly, but if we're at that point, I think JJ and Edwards are going to be in there for the remainder of third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, Brad Galley, are you familiar? ABC Detroit.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Just recently, as this past week, he interviewed Jim Harbaugh. He does that weekly. Okay. Mm-hmm. And one of his main focuses this week was kind of picking Jim's brain for JJ McCarthy. And it sounds like, to kind of go back to Jamie Lato's question from last week, do you think that cost JJ his job with that fumble and that situational play? And we talked about it probably for a good 10 or so minutes last week. It sounds like Harbaugh's still very much invested in JJ and wants to continue to get him on the field. And they're increasing his playbook, is kind of what Jim said, without basically saying, hey, we're increasing his playbook. We're saying we're looking for every opportunity to get him on the field, which means they're making more plays for him. So As of right now, to answer that question, it doesn't look like there's an end in sight. With that being said, what are your feelings? Same as always, as long as it's effective play calling, you're good with it.
Yeah, obviously you look like a genius when it works, and you look like a dummy when it doesn't. And
Yeah.
again, like what we talked about last week, as long as JJ McCarthy is used in the right situation and not in such a big moment like that, like there was just no reason to put him in there. So I feel like the best way to use him this weekend is just playing all of his snaps under center when they pull starters, if they do. And I think that's the only way you should use them. I don't think, and I mean, again, we got Michigan State coming up in the following week. I don't think that they're going to try to roll out flea flickers and RPOs and trick plays against Northwestern. So I think it's just going to be real basic.
Yeah, I agree. Before we get to the mailbag, we both predicted Michigan to win here. I mean, we're not trying to make this game bigger than it is. I think this is a good Big Ten opponent, but I think we both expect Michigan to take care of business as far as what they've done this far. I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about the kickoff time that was announced for next weekend's, as of now, really big showdown, Michigan at Michigan State. Announced at noon. They gave the nightcap to Ohio State and Penn State. Opinions on that? You have any problems with it? 2 1-loss teams battling out at night versus Michigan State potentially being at night, and they give them the noon. I'm not trying to downplay the noon game because I do believe the Fox big noon kickoff with Joe Klatt and Gus Johnson, it's big time. I'm not trying to downgrade it. But what do you think? Could this matchup have deserved a night game?
I think so, but to me, my personal opinion, noon, 3:30 night, I don't really care. Now, if I go to a game, tailgate wise, I want it to be late as possible because I want to enjoy the experience. I want to be there all day and booze up, But
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State, Ohio State, they probably just deserve it just as much as we do. And there's nothing wrong with being on at noon. And yeah, I mean, I don't care. It just doesn't bother me that much. I feel like next week when that game happens, I think it probably one of the most watched noon games, anyways.
Yeah. Only reason I bring it up is I've seen a lot of fan bases. I shouldn't say a lot of fan bases. Michigan and Michigan State fan bases basically chirping out this week saying they thought we deserved a night game out of this, and I don't know what goes into that. It's not like the NFL where they're just flexing, primetime game. It's not like that. College is way different, and obviously it has to do with there's a lot of things. Okay. So with that being said, I'm happy that Gus Johnson and Joe Klatt are calling the game, and truthfully, man, I'm not even 30 yet, but I feel old. Night games are tough. They're tough to make it through. So I'm totally cool with noon. With that said, we'll get right into the mailbag here. Tons of questions. Even a couple from this guy named Dan Nazar. NVU.
Hey.
Let's actually start with yours because it's really funny. Dating back to earlier this week, I wrote this question down in my phone to ask you, and you kind of asked the same question but differently. Here we go here. Are the Mel Tucker rumors to USC a distraction, or could they be legitimate? I'm going to slash this question. Are the Mel Tucker rumors to USC / LSU after the Ed Orgeron news? Man, there's a lot of people that are tying him to LSU now. If we smack Michigan State, I think they become immediately legitimate. If they beat Michigan, why does he leave?
Right.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Especially if they haven't played Ohio State yet. Do you think obviously this is an end of the year thing. He's not taking the job right now, right? Would you agree?
No, of course not. Yeah, I agree with you, but yeah, he ain't leaving right now.
What would make him stay? Do you think there's anything that makes him stay, or?
Well, I mean, and in a short amount of time, you've got your program in your second year, or you're almost your first year in the top 10. Only knows what he wants to do. Did he come to Michigan State to use a stepping stone, or did he come because he thought the job was rewarding in itself? And so my take with the reason why I asked the question is like I think a lot of this is kind of smoke to me right now because he's winning, and just because a job opened up somewhere doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, it's just because it's just a talking point, really. I think he's not going to be leaving Michigan State. Now, win or lose against Michigan, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. However, if he does beat Michigan, I think the noise will get a little bit louder.
So you think it'll work in reverse? He beats Michigan. You think that the chances of him leaving are even greater?
Yeah.
Interesting. See, I think he would have to get beat in order for that to happen. But maybe you're right. You know, truthfully, right now, it's in my opinion, it's all just rumor and an assumption.
Yeah.
Once we start seeing sources that Mel Tucker was contacted from SC or LSU, I think we need to start taking it seriously. I mean, as of right now, you know, he takes over Colorado, he makes them a competitive program, even gets them ranked, goes to Michigan State, takes over a dumpster fire. I think that's a fair statement. Beats Michigan in his first Big Ten game, maybe second Big Ten game. Sorry, second Big Ten game. And this year he hasn't lost yet. I mean, hell, hats off to Mel Tucker. I think things are going really well for him.
Right, and just look at, for example, like look at last year. You know, obviously Michigan had the tumultuous season they did, and then Indianapolis Colts jobs open, and then before Frank Reich, I think who it is over there, before he took over the spot, everyone's like, you know, oh my God, you know, Jim Harbaugh's gonna go back to Indy, and then they're gonna reunite him with Andrew Luck. It's just like it's just smoke right now to me. I think it's just because there's a job opening and he is creating noise, you know, down the street from Ann Arbor. It's just I don't think he's going anywhere yet. But again, he beats Michigan. I think the noise for his future gets a little louder.
Yeah, another one of those coaches that same college, different sport. You know, Juwan Howard now. Every time there's an NBA job, his name's going to surface. And in my opinion, you know, he just landed his 4-star son. In my opinion, that basically says we're getting him at least another year. Every year that those boys are on that roster, in my opinion, he's going to stay. Back to football. We got another question here. Comes in from Jamie. Writes a question pretty much every week now. I'm still waiting for Michigan to lose one they shouldn't. Gosh, is that so true?
Oh, yeah.
He continues, I have a feeling Northwestern will be it with a huge game versus MSU looming. My question is, do you deep down believe this coaching staff is different and has learned to focus on the team of Northwestern? It's a really good question because we've said this multiple times this season. We expected to lose at Wisconsin. We expected to lose a game at Nebraska. We don't expect this one. And this is the one that's kind of like, oh, they just get us sometimes. I mean, I'll start here. Jamie, to answer your question, I sure as hell hope not. I believe this team is different, to answer your final question there. Do you believe deep down that this coaching staff is different and has focused? Yes, they are different. We can see they are different. There is different juice. There is different mojo. There is different competitive atmosphere being built daily, in my opinion, on this team. Little things that we haven't seen in the past. Sideline dances, sideline photos, late night Saturday practices from random kids. Harbaugh's demeanor, Mike Hart being in the building, the play calling. I mean, gosh, I could keep going here. You're feeling me. The blue pants. I know it's little, but it's subtle stuff. I believe this team is really trying everything in their power to be not just different for the sake of being different, but being better. It's been a while since I've said it, and I haven't heard it in a while. What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? That, I believe it runs true. It's a one game at a time focus. Jamie, I don't agree with you. I don't think this is the game. I think they go into Northwestern and I think they beat them. Or I think they go in Ann Arbor with Northwestern coming to town. I think they beat them. Do they beat them by 23.5 points? I don't know because, again, we talked about this. I think the running game stands big this weekend. And I just don't know if you're going to see a whole opportunity to extend the lead. Could it be a 24-0 game? Yeah, sure. But truthfully, as good as the defense has been, I don't think it shuts them out. Well, I guess we'll just see. But I'll let you go. What do you think? His prediction that this potentially will be a loss, and as well as his coaching staff question.
I agree with you 100%. Definitely, the culture is different this year. I think having Mike Hart again, we've said it, I think before, having Mike Hart back in the building is huge, and just like when he was receiving handoffs from Chad Henne for 4 years, when Mike Hart was on the field, the team went to a new level, and when he was off the field, you could tell that there was a little lax there. But they're focused again. Yeah, they got some swag. They got the sideline thing going on right now. When they faced adversity this year, they conquered it. Michigan does have a habit, in the past of losing games they shouldn't. Last year was Indiana. It was almost Rutgers also, and it was Michigan State. They should have beat Michigan State last year. This season, from where they're at right now, I think if there's any trip-up games or games they should win and they lose, I think the fall there could be against Indiana again, or Maryland, because going into Michigan State, who knows who's going to be favored at that point? Going against Penn State and Happ Valley, they're probably going to be the underdog, and then when they go to Columbus, they're going to be an underdog. Or when they play Ohio State in Ann Arbor, they're going to be an underdog. So, November 6th and November 20th, Indiana, Maryland. I think these are the games that you're going to want to pay attention to. This one right here, again, I don't think Northwestern has juice to pull the upset off this time.
I could almost get behind the idea that if this was a road game, potentially. But they're at home. I don't see a letdown here. It just doesn't make sense to me. Dating back to that 2016 Revenge Tour game or whatever, didn't they drop a game at Iowa before they played Ohio State?
Yeah, it was like 10-3. It was something weird.
It was like, but it was at Iowa. Yeah, it was just weird things like that. When they have to go on the road before a big game, that's tough because you're traveling and there's just different things going through your mind. I just don't think this is it. I mean,
plus it's Kinnick. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not Chicago where there's like 80% Michigan graduates in there. So it's a little different.
Yeah. I think we answered that the best we could here. We'll go again. Man, you got questions for days on here. How long is Scott Frost's leash? First question here. He's alum, isn't he?
Yeah. Brad, who's in my break page or whatever, who joined the Real Talk Facebook page. He's a Nebraska fan, and he commented on there. And if you read what he says, he's pretty much fed up.
I'll read it here. Yeah. So I had a feeling he was a Nebraska fan. I kind of clicked on his page here. So it says, I hope that the leash is super short. One more loss, bench Martinez, say bye to Frost, which means they better beat Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Iowa. But they got to start with Purdue first. Could they beat Purdue? Probably. Are they beating Ohio State? No. Wisconsin? Maybe. Iowa? Probably not, depending where the game's at. I don't think that's enough, though. How long has he even been there? I feel like it has been a little bit, but at the same time, not long enough.
I feel like this is maybe his 4th or 5th season.
Holy cow. So, no, because Harbaugh's in his 5th season, right? Or is this his 6th season?
Harbaugh came in 2015.
Yeah. So this is season 7. No, season 6 for him. Yeah, this is season 6. So there was a season where we played him when he was the Western Michigan head coach. While Jim Harbaugh was there, and he out-hit us. Remember the big game there. Gosh, he might be in 4 or 5. Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe it was one season or two. Who knows? But um, I don't know. I can't imagine it's already right. They got to give him more time.
I think because he's an alum and he was so highly regarded going in there, I think it's going to be, hey, need you to resign. I think it'll be that way.
Ooh,
I don't. I mean, maybe they do fire him. I don't know. Maybe I read Nebraska wrong. I just feel like that's their Jim Harbaugh. That's their homeboy. Now regarding Adrian Martinez, I don't think he benched him. I don't think Nebraska. I mean, record is ugly. Whether can't put lipstick on a pig. I mean, it's still a pig, but I think Adrian Martinez gives you the best chance to win the ball game. And even though he turns the ball over, he still keeps you in it. He's still competitive. So it's hard for me to boot him into the curb. But obviously, Brad's a Nebraska fan. He watches the game, so I mean, maybe he knows if the second string has got more giddy up. I don't know. But in my opinion, I think that Scott Frost has got maybe this season and maybe next year. I don't know what their recruiting looks like at the moment, but he better turn it around fast because it sounds like from the Nebraska media, Nebraska fans, they thought at least by now they would be, where kind of Iowa's at right now, competing for that West spot.
yeah. Your second part to the question here: where does Ed Orgeron go next? So Ed Orgeron, LSU, they're going to part ways here at the end of the season. When you shared that to the Real Talk page, the first thing I said was he should have been fired a couple of years ago. Joe Burrow basically saved that man's job, and I believe it was Eric Murray who kind of he commented at me. He said, "Yeah, Joe Brady helps too," and I absolutely 100% agree. Um, watch out for him to get the LSU job, depending on how much he liked it there. Maybe he's an NFL guy. He literally spent 1 year in college football and took Joe Burrow to a new height, like literally elevated him to a new height. Gets a lot of the credit for it and should. Though he had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, literally that offense turned out to be stacked overnight when it wasn't the year prior. So who knows? But where does Ed Orgeron go next? To answer your question, I mean, gosh, I don't know, man. Does he take a job at a school where it's not as tough as the SEC? Does he take a job like Michigan State, like a switch? Does he take a Penn State if Franklin decides to go to USC, which I don't think he does, but just saying there. I mean, there's a couple. I don't know. Maybe he takes a couple years off. Maybe he gets into broadcasting. People love that dude, the way he talks, and he has like that. I've been smoking for 50 years, really like raspy voice. I don't know. I think he could work in broadcasting too. Who knows? Truthfully, he doesn't have any success as a head coach outside of the one season at LSU. Am I wrong? Nothing else stands out.
He's 65 and 44, and he's
That's
4-1. He's
terrible.
4, and yeah, and he's 40. He's 4-1 in bowl games. And what? So 2 of those wins are from the playoff.
Dude, if Jim Harbaugh was 65 and 44, it would be worse. Literally, he wouldn't even be employed anymore.
Right.
People would have his head a long time ago. Ed Orgeron, he should have been fired a couple years back. He got extended because of the whole national championship gig. Truthfully, I mean, he probably should have been fired after the. Gosh, when did Burrow win it? In 19, so he probably should have been fired after the 18 season when they were as bad as they were.
Yeah, and like again, it's my question here about where does he go next. I mean, no one. I mean, obviously, it's just a guessing game because he's been a little bit everywhere. He never played in the NFL. He went straight from college to GA. He played at LSU for 1 year, and he was at Northwestern State, and then he was a GA there, and then he just went into the coaching ranks, and he's always been that defensive line kind of coach. He's a D lineman at heart, and obviously he was there for 4 seasons with USC and was the interim head coach before taking the LSU defensive line job, and then obviously moves into the head coaching role. Dude, I can see him going to the ACC again because he was at Miami, Florida for a few years back in the 80s. I mean, I could see him go to the Pac-12. I just think that if he goes back into coaching, I think he takes a step back and finds himself at a like a tier 2 type of Power 5 team at a
I agree.
like a fringe top 25. I mean, LSU kind of recruits itself, so we kind of have to see where he goes next to see if he can actually recruit players.
Nebraska,
because right,
just throwing it out, Yeah, I think we agree. I don't think he's taken a top tier job. I think at this point he probably has to kind of re-earn it and reestablish himself, or just take a step back and realize that you're just not a Nick Saban counter guy. You know what I mean?
Right,
you're just
right.
not there anymore. You clearly, if he's going to continue to be a top tier head coach, coordinators obviously matter huge for him.
Yeah.
Because he's been a good recruiter. He's recruited very well there. But the 1 year he has Joe Brady, he wins the national championship. I don't think that's a coincidence. Who takes the LSU job? Again, my first pick is Joe Brady. We'll see if he actually digs the college experience or if he just wants to be an NFL guy, because I've also tied his name to the Raiders. I've tied his name to a couple other squads as well, because I do believe that he's like that next mind that just for some reason hasn't got a job yet. And there's a lot of people also tying Eric Bieniemy to those jobs, and there's a lot of people tying Kellen Moore to those jobs. Watch out for Kellen Moore to take the LSU job. He was obviously a Boise stud. I don't know. That'd be a crazy hire. Offensive mind, go in there and just. He knows he's got the players because Orgeron could recruit.
Yeah.
So he's got some talent there, and all of a sudden he's going to call plays, and they're really good. And Nick Saban has said multiple times on record that he can't stop good offenses. He just has to outbeat them. He just has to outscore them. So, I don't know. What do you think about the LSU job?
I think Joe Brady is the obvious first candidate to me. Again, it's up to obviously up to Joe Brady's mind. Is he got NFL aspirations, or does he want to go back to the college ranks? I think Joe Brady is going to be NFL to stay, in my opinion. I think he's going to find the next hot OC job, or he takes over the next NFL team on the up. Joe Brady is for sure. Bieniemy, who knows? Maybe he does go to the college ranks. I feel like LSU will find a coach rather quickly, though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's people saying that, and I don't disagree. LSU is probably a better job than SC at this point. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. 100%.
I'm going to throw another name out. Urban Meyer.
Jesus.
It's going to keep getting thrown out, isn't it? And he did get his first win this past week.
Mm-hmm.
But, if he finishes the season with 2 wins under his belt, does he leave and take an LSU or an SC? Or I don't know. I think that this offseason there could be a lot of jobs open. Or does Luke Cincinnati, help me out.
Fickell.
Luke Fickell. Does Luke Fickell ride off into the sunset with Riddler and go take one of these big time jobs after that? Because let's be honest here, he's losing what a lot of people are now saying is the top quarterback in the draft. He loses him. Cincinnati is no longer a threat to be in the college football playoffs, and then he just dogs him, just leaves.
Man, you know what? That would be bold move on Louisiana State's part if they got Luke Fickell. I don't know if that would necessarily work, only because I don't want to compare it to one situation, but I feel like that'd be almost like a lateral move, kind of like when Texas hired Charlie Strong from Louisville, and it's like that guy's going to a different time zone, doesn't really have recruiting ties there. I don't know, man. Luke Fickell, I think, is
tough.
I think he's deserving of a good job somewhere, but SEC, man, that might be a lot of a lot of horse to ride there.
Yeah. We'll keep it moving here. Kyle Miller writes in. That is a good question here. What do you want to see most improved after the week off from Michigan? I'll let you start.
I want to see kind of just what a continuation of what we've seen on the effort part. Again, I don't know if it's going to conflict with our theory that we did earlier, where we think we're just going to see a team that's not going to try to show too much and just try to grind it out, type deal. But
Yeah.
I feel like I want to see just the energy stay the same and not just keep the gas on the pedal, man. Pedal to the floor. If we travel by ground again, keep moving it. But I just don't want to see these guys not focused. I mean, maybe that's a lame answer, but I feel like it's really the only one because if we were playing someone different, if we were playing Michigan State tomorrow, then I could probably give you more of a detailed answer of like I could get really into like a position group or something. But I think just overall, I think that's kind of where I'm at.
I don't disagree. I'm going to answer the question pretty much the same way, but a little differently. I don't want this to sound cocky because I'm not trying to overhype Michigan. I want to see Michigan play as good as they've played through the first 6 weeks. And I think they've played well. So I'm not trying to say, what do you want to see improved? I'm not saying they can't improve somewhere because they can. But the last time we seen Cade on the road at Nebraska, we pick up a W. But he threw a pick, his first pick of his career. I want to make sure that doesn't happen again, especially of a lesser opponent. I'm hoping that that's improved. No turnovers. Back to no turnovers again. Okay. Back to running the football, establishing yourself, getting those 5-6 yards of carry that we've been seeing throughout the season. And I want to see the play calling. I want to see good, effective play calling. Just because they're what appears to be a bad football team, don't be throwing out no crap, setting up bad habits for the next week. That's pretty much where I'm at. Moving on here, last question. We'll pretty much wrap her up for the day, unless you got some more here. So Brad comes in. This might be a lengthy question. Does it hurt to know that because college football is flawed, a Big Ten team likely won't be in the playoff if Bama beats Georgia later in the year, and they put in Georgia with 1 loss, Bama with 1 loss, Cincinnati undefeated, and Oklahoma undefeated? So in his scenario, okay, in my opinion, something would have to happen. That something would have to be Ohio State beats Michigan, which I'm not saying Michigan's beating Ohio State. Let's not even jump to conclusions here. And they would have to beat Michigan State. Because if a undefeated Michigan team beats Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State, they're getting in over Cincinnati or Oklahoma. Mark my damn words. You would or Alabama. I don't give a shit. Somebody of those 4 is losing out to a Michigan team that's undefeated. Okay, let me say that, Brad, if you're listening here. Second thing, if Ohio State only has 1 loss and they beat what a lot of people have continuously called the Gauntlet Big Ten season, and their only loss is to Oregon, week 2, you'd have an awfully hard time leaving Ohio State out. With that said, I'm not so sure that Oklahoma runs the table, but with his scenario, what is your opinion here? I'll let you go.
I kind of agree with you, man. And I just feel like with the playoff committee, I feel like Cincinnati is going to get hosed at some point. If I feel like even if the Big Ten champ has got 1 loss, I think, and let's say Cincinnati's undefeated, I think Cincinnati there's a possibility that they could still get hosed just because.
Even though they've made it up to 2, they are now the second-ranked team in the country.
I still think that once the meaty part of these conference schedules start played out, and you have a one-loss team like, let's say, Ohio State, even if, or Michigan, whatever, I just feel like Cincinnati could be host. I really do. Now if they do get in, good for them. But I think Oklahoma, they're playing good ball and at times, but I think Oklahoma's going to trip up. I don't think this conversation is going to be too difficult down the road. But if Oklahoma and Cincinnati keep winning, that's going to create more of a controversy with the Big Ten. If the Big Ten keeps winning and Oklahoma falls off, then I think it'll be a little bit easier. I don't know. But I'm kind of there with you.
So let me say this, because I think a lot of people are probably listening and saying that, no, Dan, Cincinnati's not going to get hosed. So Cincinnati, for once, does have 2 big-time Power 5 wins. I'm sorry, 1 big-time, 1 good. One is at Indiana, the other one is at Notre Dame. Okay? But as of right now, their next several games, this is rough. Okay? This week, they're going to play Navy. They're 1-5. Then they're going to play Tulane, 1-5. Then they are going to play. Hang on here, I just had it. I'm sorry. Tulsa, 3-4. Then, and this is why you said this, they're going to play South Florida, 1-5. Okay. Then, this is the game that they really need to shape up to be basically perfect. SMU is currently undefeated at 6-0. That is their last game of the year, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe they have another. Oh no, then they would play East Carolina to end the season. So they need SMU, that late season game. They need that to stay an undefeated matchup to keep some momentum into the committee's head, because at some point that Notre Dame win is going to naturally fade away.
Yeah.
There's a reason Michigan and Ohio State play at the end of the year. There's a reason those things happen. There's a reason that a lot of these these title games are played at the end, because you need a big time win going into these. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, I think what Brad's trying to make the point of it, and I know Brad's take on this, we've spoke about it ad nauseum. He's a big fan of a 16-team playoff.
Right.
And a 4-team playoff, while I agree isn't enough, I've always said that I think 16's too many. But regardless, there's just no possible way that an undefeated Michigan team gets left out. So I think the discussion is who gets left out and why, and when does that expand? Because if a one-loss Bama team who beats Georgia gets left out, expanded playoffs next year. It would take Bama to have it happen.
Right, and unfortunately, Cincinnati they can't control technically they really can't control what conference they're in. At least the football program per se. But again, you got once these Big Ten teams start separating themselves and beating each other, like when Ohio State meets Penn State, when Penn State meets Michigan, and that one undefeated team keeps being undefeated, and they're right behind Cincinnati in the rankings. Cincinnati is going to go out and win by, such and such points against Tulsa, and then you got a Michigan team that goes on the road to Happy Valley and beats Penn State. I mean, where are we going to draw the line at who's got the better quality wins there? And let's be honest, Notre Dame is kind of like how Michigan is. I mean, they'll show out in the beginning of the season and then they fade away, or they the tires come off in the bowl game or when they get to the playoffs. So again, I just think that Cincinnati is or between a rock and hard place right now, and there's nothing they can do about it, man. They're gonna have to, if SMU is still undefeated at the end of the year, they're gonna have to kill them. They're gonna have video game numbers to. I don't know. I feel bad, man, because that's just kind of how I feel like it's gonna play out.
Yeah. Yeah, conversation for another day. We could talk hours at an expanded playoff and scenarios of who beats who and who beats what and what happens here if that happens. So, I used to have those every Monday at work for the last 5 weeks of the college football season for the last 3 years. So I know what those look like. They're long conversations. So, that pretty much wraps up what I have. Anything else you want to add?
This weekend, Ohio State has got Indiana, so that's at 7:30. I'm gonna keep my eye on that game. I think Ohio State's gonna take care of business or whatever there, but Indiana, you know how gritty they can be. You got really kind of we talked about this before the live. This upcoming games, these games Saturday, nothing real beefy. USC's at 500 right now, 3-3, but they play Notre Dame. So
Yeah.
traditionally, you might have some classics in here, but I mean, outside of a couple, we're not gonna have many robust pre games here. But
you know what that tells me? There's going to be a big upset.
It very
somewhere.
well could be.
There will be an upset somewhere. It always happens like that when it's like top 25 teams in action. 20 of them are playing, and 5 of them are on the road. And of those 20 matchups, 18 of them are probably projected to win by 14 plus, and all of a sudden somebody goes down. Somebody's going to lose. Hope it's not Michigan, obviously. Truthfully, I hope it's not Ohio State.
Right, and real quick too, I guess another one that could be maybe upset kind of esque is Iowa State hosting number 8 Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State just came off an emotional win against Texas.
Yes, and they are still undefeated.
And Iowa State, they're at home and they got Campbell, and then yes. Purdue just cracked the top 25 and they got Wisconsin at home. So I think those 2 games are going to be pretty good. But that's enough of me talking about this weekend. But you're right. Now we sit and wait to see if somebody is tearing down goalposts or not.
Yeah. Closing remarks here. Have a good time at the game. Be loud. Happened to go a couple games this year. Being back in the big house felt great, and I hope it feels great for you too. And that's a wrap. Go Blue.
Go Blue, buddy.
Take care. See you guys next time. Real talk. We out.